could bring this meeting to order, we'd like to welcome everyone to the August 20th, 2018, 6:45 meeting. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone. We have our invocation by Commissioner Michael Booth, and Michael has a friend that's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, if you please stand.
Yep, if you all will please stand. Father, we come to you this evening for your blessing and help to do our best for all the citizens of our community. We pray for guidance and ask that you would clearly show us how to work with a spirit of we, not merely me. Give us the vision to plan and the power to proceed. Help us to improve the health, happiness, and quality of life for all. Make us mindful of the simple task of paying it forward each and every day. We ask all this in your name. Amen. Amen. At this time, y'all can have a seat. You won't be able to see him if you keep standing. All right, never mind. He'll come around. Lane. Where is he?
Here you come.
Right up there. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Lane White. He's 11 years old. He is a lifelong resident, born right here at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center. He's here with his mother, Carrie, hey, and his sister, Libby, who's taking pictures of him right over there. He's probably the most daring little motorcycle rider you'd ever want to see at age 11. I've watched him grow up. His dad's the best motorcycle mechanic in town. I'm still alive. And I've watched him grow up. He's been riding since he's about this tall, and he's a huge American, and I asked him if he'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He said he'd be glad to. So, Lane, if you'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, Lane, if you would, go ahead. There you go. Shake her hand, please.
Yeah.
There you go.
You got to shake your hand.
Yes. And Libby.
Oh.
Libby.
Thank you, Lane. There you go. Hey, Lane.
I know. This is the shy one of the family.
Hey, Libby.
Lane, you and Libby come on up here. Stand here and face that nice man with the camera. He looks mean, but he's actually very nice.
Yes. That's quick on the trigger tonight.
Thank you, sir. See ya. Tell your dad that.
Commissioner Adams, you've had a chance to look at this group. Any recognitions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize, I think we have our Register of Deeds, Mr. Lee Warren, here tonight. I think I saw our Clerk of Superior Court, Ms. Lisa Scales, come in. If you stand up, Ms. Lisa Scales is here tonight. We have, I think she wants you to pull your mic down, Mr. Chairman. There you go. I think I saw Mayor Burnett come in. He was here tonight. Mayor Burnett's over there. I saw Francis Jackson from the Vice Chairman of our ABC board, if she would stand, and Ms. Kathy Jensen, who is City Council District 1. District 1. And I think Judge Ed Pone is here. Our Chief District Court Judge, Robert Steele, is here. And I think the Garrison Commander, Colonel Reed, is here. Thank you so much for coming in. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. If I didn't miss anybody, everybody else is important. Robert Van Gins, I don't recognize Robert Van Gins. Economic Development, he's here every week, so.
That's good news.
That's good news. That's a good thing.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. At this time, we have recognition of Cumberland County Cares Award to Doug Austin, Alcohol Law Enforcement Agent that will be taken care of by Commissioner Council.
We have a very special recognition tonight, and I will call him to the podium in a minute. The highest award that we can give is the Cumberland County Cares Award to a citizen, and this is being given to Doug Austin. If you would come to the front for me, please. Let me ask all of the ABC board employees, staff, family to stand while I come down. I should be walking down now. Sorry about that. Okay. Turn the microphone around. Be recognized. Who is not saying this? Oh, okay. Thank you. Mr. Austin is an alcohol law enforcement agent with the state. On December 19th, he saw an ambulance that was on an emergency run stop suddenly in the middle of the road. He went to the ambulance to check on the safety of the crew. And according to paramedic Tom Price with Cumberland County EMS, Special Agent Austin recognized that the rescue crew was working with the sudden cardiac arrest of a pediatric patient. He immediately offered aid and assumed airway management. I don't know what that is.
Basically, I took over bagging and breathing for the young fellow.
Oh.
He did everything to make sure that the child lived, okay? I had no idea what that was. He correctly ventilated the patient in accordance with the basic life support protocols, which allows both medics to accomplish other tasks. Even after the additional help arrived, Special Agent Austin continued support. He offered to ride with the hospital or whatever. In the words of paramedic Price, Agent Doug Austin's actions were above and beyond the call of duty and exemplify the highest standards of public service. His demeanor on the scene was impeccable. It was calm and it was professional, which unquestionably led to superior care for the patient. His actions were in keeping with the highest traditions of law enforcement and public service and greatly reflect on the North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement Agency. And that is why we have so many officials here with us tonight. I didn't see you. Hey. Our director is here, Mr. David Horn. I am so pleased and proud to present this to you. And I hope if it ever happens to me that you're somewhere close. And his wife is here. Wave. Thank you. It says Cumberland County Cares, presented to Doug Austin, Alcohol Law Enforcement Agent, in recognition of outstanding service to your community and for caring enough to make a difference. Presented this 20th day of August 2018 by Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Absolutely. Just Real quick, I appreciate it. Thank you for the recognition. It's not every day that you get an esteemed honor like this. Definitely want to say thank you to my supervisors, my superiors at the board. They allow me to continue and pursue training that keeps my skills sharp so that if I have to intervene like this, I can. Again, just thank you to the community. Thank you to my supervisors, Mr. Horn, Mr. Russell, Chief Libero. Thank you all very much.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here we go.
At this time, there will be recognition of Fort Bragg Centennial Celebration and consideration of a proclamation. Commissioner Keefe, Commissioner Evans will do this. And Madam Clerk, there's a request for a motion to approve this proclamation.
I make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay. Mr. Keefe, Commissioner Evans, front and center. Thank you.
Hurry, if you could join us.
If they look fit enough, we'll swear them in right now.
All right.
We've already been on that way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Evans and I have had. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Evans and I have had the honor of serving and the privilege of being neighbors of Fort Bragg for many years. As I was going through the history of what our community means to Fort Bragg and what Fort Bragg means to our community, I was struck by a number of things. And it's so much more than just geographical. There is a bond here of where, you know, our children go to school with service member children. We pray together with service members every single day, and they're such an integral part of our community. I dare say that if I ask for a show of hands here of anybody who has served, maybe has had a family member, a mother, a father, or a son or daughter that served, can I see a show of hands of anybody who knows that? I think you won't find this in many other communities. And that is an important part of the bond that we have. Personally, for me, I think it makes us very unique. We have so many different people from so many different parts of our country and the world that come here. And it kind of makes us the world's hometown. It really is. And you know, my father was a service member, came from a different country. He was from Massachusetts. And that was, you know, to many people.
All the way.
So, if I could, I would like to read a proclamation from Cumberland County in honor of the 100th anniversary of Fort Bragg coming to our area. It starts off with, whereas Chief of the Field Artillery, General William J. Snow, decided in 1918 to establish a military camp outside Fayetteville, North Carolina, after finding that the area had suitable terrain, adequate water, rail facilities, and a climate for year-round military training. And whereas Camp Bragg came into existence on September 4th, 1918, and was named for General Braxton Bragg, a native North Carolinian, for his actions during the Mexican-American War. And whereas Camp Bragg became Fort Bragg and a permanent Army post on September 30th, 1922. Whereas Fort Bragg has trained and deployed service members for all major wars and conflicts in its 100-year history, to include World Wars I and II, the Cold War operations in the Dominican Republic, Vietnam, Grenada, and the Caribbean, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, and New Dawn. Whereas today, Fort Bragg is the home of the Airborne and Special Operations Forces, with approximately 57,000 military personnel 11,000 civilian employees, and 23,000 family members, and is one of the largest military complexes in the country, in the world. Whereas Fort Bragg equips, trains, rapidly deploys, and sustains full-spectrum forces supporting combatant commanders from a community of excellence where soldiers, families, and civilians thrive. Whereas Cumberland County is proud of the home of Fort Bragg and grateful to the military members and their families who have served our country and helped make our community what it is today. So therefore, be it proclaimed that the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners hereby, after congratulations and deep appreciation of Fort Bragg on its 100th anniversary, proudly proclaims September 4th, 2018 as Fort Bragg Centennial Anniversary Day in Cumberland County. Colonel Reed, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for representing Fort Bragg with us today, and we'd love to hear some words from you if you would.
Well, sir, thank you for this opportunity to speak to everyone. I'll be honest with you. You think about the history of this installation over the last 100 years. A lot has changed, but then again, a lot hasn't changed. I will tell you that when the 82nd Airborne Division was formed, it was a true representation from all 48 states at the time here on this installation. Today, I beg to differ with you, it hasn't changed much with the representation from across the country, other than now we have 50 states represented. But we also have the territories and other associated personnel serving in our military. But you look at the size, you look at the scope, you look at the activeness of the installation. I mean, in the remarks at the very beginning, we talked about we. We talked about more than just me. And that's exactly what this installation does, is because it's not just our own island over there of military members. More than 65% of the installation's population lives with all of you outside the gated community. So it is very much linked to the community and how we interact and make best appropriations and best interest for all of the community versus just the military community. So, sir, I sincerely appreciate the remarks that you provided. I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to come speak to all of you and provide a little bit of perspective of not only who we are, but what we provide to you in the defense of this nation in support of the freedoms that we enjoy here. So thank you very much.
We're fill-ins back here, aren't we? Look at Tom. So we have a video.
We do. Our commissioners made a short video as a shout out to Fort Bragg, and we wanted to play that and share with everybody.
No, you're fine, thank you.
Thank you, Fort Bragg, for serving our country. Over the past 100 years, we appreciate the service and sacrifices of our military. Service members and their families, past, present, and future. Happy 100th anniversary, Fort Bragg.
And we did that in one take. One take.
That's all right. Politicians telling stories.
I believe it was one take, though. Sounds like one. God bless you. Thank you for what you do, my friend. Where that camera at?
Okay.
Thank you. We are at the public comment period of our meeting. Call on our county manager, Amy Cannon, to read the public comment policy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The public comment period is an opportunity for the citizens to engage with the Board of Commissioners. The public comment period shall last no longer than 15 minutes. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to make remarks. No time may be yielded to another speaker. Speakers will address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by stating their name and address. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We have 3 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Chief District Court Judge Robert Steele.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Commissioners, county staff, citizens, let me say it's a pleasure to address you, as is my habit. Typically, I'm going to give you the stats on what we've been doing at the courthouse, but the most important thing I want to share, and since we had Colonel Reed up here, it's critically important. Many of you realize on June 4th, we became one of the first of a number of counties in North Carolina to accept an e-filing procedure for victims of domestic violence that are seeking to file civil protective orders. One of those components are video Skype interviews by our judges. Judge Pone and I and the others went through the training. I'm proud to share with you today, literally today, the AOC staff was out at Fort Bragg with the Colonel's concurrence, with Fort Bragg support, with that of the Pentagon, to support this project. We may be the first in the country, we are the first in the country to offer this to service members and dependents, meaning they don't have to ride 12 hours in with their kids, whether dependents or active duty members, and go back out to Fort Bragg to initiate a protective order. I've been out to Fort Bragg a number of occasions. It's to speak on domestic violence or their SHARP program, which is a sexual harassment initiative. Fort Bragg, the Pentagon, I will compliment them on how serious, maybe more so than us civilians, how seriously they address dysfunctions. And one of the reasons, and I'm sure the Colonel would echo this, when we talk all we want about readiness, when we build the amenities out on Bragg to support our troops, where we as a community rally behind these families, if there's dysfunction behind closed doors, it jeopardizes national security and troop readiness. And I want to compliment publicly this Colonel on how he has cooperated with state government, AOC, our county government, the clerk of Superior Court, our elected sheriff, the district court judges, and the others that are implementing this program. I'll quickly add that our monthly figures, while we were out, could not meet together. We have run, so the citizens know, we've averaged 59,000 citizens a month come through these doors. Our Sheriff's Department counts them. They're responsible for our security. They do a great job. By the way, Lieutenant Scales is here with us. He's my go-to individual, my contact with the Sheriff's Department. We've had approximately 20,000 hearings. 16 to 18,000 of those are in district court. So we've been extraordinarily busy. It's the people's business. That's what we're here for. But I just want to share with you, on behalf of Judge Pone, the other 8 judges, and the 4 Superior Court judges, that I think I can say this for them. We're very privileged to work for them, for you, for the community, and we appreciate the partnership effort we feel, not just from you, but county government, and Amy, Dwayne, and all the staff members have been superb, and our military neighbors out at Fort Bragg. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to see you, Judge.
Our next speaker is Mr. Andrew Early.
Mr. Early, welcome. Good to see you this evening.
All right, good evening. My name is Andrew Early, 6443 Touchstone Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm here this evening just to kind of, I guess, to make a comment and probably ask a question in closing. So, understand that for those of you that may not have seen me here before, since about 2011, I think I've been an advocate for the TJR Life Center project that's in Hope Mills, North Carolina, and we've been adamantly looking for funding to kind of make this project come to life. So I'm here today because there was a meeting that was held here in June 18th, where the subject of that meeting happened to be concerning some residents of the Mount Vernon Estates. And just to kind of sum up what took place at that meeting, there was a sum of money that was requested to repair a dam, about $558,630. And to my understanding, it was voted and approved that the actual improvements could be made not to exceed $560,000. Now, of course, it was a lengthy process, and I'm kind of summing it all through to get it all done in three minutes. I guess one of the most interesting points that were brought up was that it was stated that some members of the board expressed their concerns in regards to it being considered a loan, setting a certain type of precedent. And then it was also mentioned that this was considered a 6% interest-bearing account, which was more profitable than sitting in the county's bank. What I would say to that is, not to take anything away from those residents of the Mount Vernon Estates. I'm sure that that particular project is important to them. But I represent a group of individuals that invested over $1 million of their own money. $1 million from a military family, retired disabled veterans. $1 million to put into a project to have an economic impact on the community. So what has taken place since 2011, there's been some progress made, but there's still a ways to go. And I guess what's shocking is that for the times that we've come to the board and requested assistance, and we do understand the business, the overall business aspect of it. But some years ago, you can recall that the county voted to actually provide some funds to improve on our detention center, and we were opposed to that as well. We decided to invest money in a detention center, but not in a facility to prevent those individuals from even needing the detention center. So during that time, we provided all of the economic legwork, all of their homework. We told them how it would impact the community, how it would have an impact on lodging, how it would impact retail, how it would impact jobs. And I guess that wasn't enough. So once again, I don't want to take anything away from those families at the Mount Vernon Estates, but I would like for everyone here to understand that we were trying to affect far more families than in the Mount Vernon Estates. So real quick, you all may not be aware that just July of 2018, if I could just have a minute, July of 2018, this same organization took a group of 8th grade girls to Myrtle Beach. They competed in a tournament. They are national champions from Cumberland County. You all may not even be aware of that. They're from various high schools in Cumberland County. They're national champions by this same organization that's trying to use sports as a foundation to help build and foster those young people. So in closing, I would just ask that the consideration that was given to the Mount Vernon Estates for that sum of $560,000 could very well be used at the TJR Life Center to affect those young people. Thank you.
Next.
Our final speaker is Pastor Proctor.
Pastor Proctor.
Good evening, Council. Pastor Fallon Proctor, 5605 West Branch Drive here in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm speaking to you this evening in the continuation of a conversation for the T.J. Robinson Life Center. I serve as the senior advisor for the advisory board of the Life Center. And just as Mr. Early has said, I would like to continue the conversation. We've had an opportunity, of course, over the last month to continue progress in the development of the Life Center, to continue moving forward with the things that are necessary to be able to aid in the county. Wanted to take the opportunity to bring it to all of our attention, and it's even greater when we can take an opportunity to take a look at those who we've elected to serve and to take care of our community. We can take the opportunity to look at those who are sitting before a community that is combined of military, that's combined of adults and children, and we take a look at a county that says our concern is for the betterment of the county and for the citizens of the county, but we've taken into account 16 properties when we have an entire county that's filled with people who are in need, when we have an entire county that's filled with people who are doing things to impact the county. And one of the deciding factors that was presented was a monetary decision. A monetary decision that said the tax impact of preparing this dam would be greater. And that was a real reason for giving the funding. Well, the Life Center, as it sits today, We've invested about $2 million in this property. With the $2 million that's been invested, without it being opened, and we're about 4 months from being opened, it's valued at about $5.2 million, which we're paying hefty bit of taxes on that property. Whereas if you combine the 16 homes that are already identified that will benefit from that, the only people who would get to enjoy the beauty of that dam would be the people who sit in front of that dam. The rest of us who are sitting in the county would have a greater impact by utilizing a facility that will give us all the opportunity to be able to utilize taxpayer monies. We were told privately and publicly before this committee, as well as in closing with the attorney, as well as others on this panel, as commissioners, said to us that the county is not in the business of lending money. And I'm coming before you today to say that this is an outrage. This would not be the last time that we're going to stand and allow this to be on the record, because many citizens are not aware that you guys privately discussed this and then came publicly and held a meeting where you said, let's give over $500,000 to 16 homes to better their homes, while we have others in this county who are pouring money into a system that we do not get the benefits of being able to utilize. You pick and choose who you want to give money to, so we wanted to be on record tonight that we're asking for the county support. We have an outlining debt of $500,000 that we're asking the county to consider. If you can give $500,000 for the sake of supplying funds for a dam, we're asking for $500,000 consideration in the completion of the T.J. Robinson Life Center as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. County Manager, are there any changes to agenda?
No, sir, no changes.
At this point, I'd like to call for a motion and a second and a vote for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
County Manager, I understand we have some presentation.
Yes, sir. I'm proud to present this item. I think Commissioner Council is going to come forward for a presentation regarding a request from the Fayetteville Cumberland Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to rename the Grays Creek Recreation Facilities. And Mr. Chairman, after that presentation, we're asking the board for approval of the recommendation from the Facilities Committee.
Okay.
On August the 2nd, the Facilities Committee approved a request from the Fayetteville Cumberland County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to rename the Grays Creek Recreation Center in the memory of Mr. J.D. Pone. I can think of no one more deserving of this honor than Mr. Pone. He served with dignity and honor and volunteered on many of our boards and commissions. He was a chaplain of the volunteer fire department, because I was surprised, I was shocked. I had not seen a man of color on the volunteer fire department, but yet there he was. But he was deputy chief at the Grays Creek Fire Department Station 24, and of course chaplain for the entire organization, Fire Chiefs organization. He left high school in the mid-60s, turbulent times in the mid-60s, went to Fayetteville State and almost completed his degree before he was drafted to serve in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. And I remember those days well. I was only 2 at the time. But I remember the turbulence of that time. So Mr. Pone was a tough guy. He was a champion for youth who served with the organizations that promote youth development, including the Fayetteville Cumberland County Parks and Recreation Association. But I believe before he left, Mr. Warren, he went to the Register of Deeds office where he trained our present, what's your position? That's what I thought it was. Now, clerk of court for Cumberland County. He trained her in the Register of Deeds office. He was that kind of a person. Come with me, Skip. I'm going to give you 2 or 3 times to say something, 2 or 3 minutes to say something. He was a South View band booster. Anything he participated in wholeheartedly. He didn't do a little piece of anything. He loved Grays Creek Church. He and his brothers were, I guess they all had a singing talent. They were
Willis Creek. Willis Creek.
Willis Creek. What did I
Willis
say?
Creek. That's right.
I don't even know what I said.
They wanted him over. They wanted him over at Grace Creek.
But he was at Willis.
But he's at Willis.
Grace Creek. Okay, all right. Willis Creek AME Church, which my husband told me was part of the family church. He told me of his family, he's a cousin, some kind of way. But Skip, you are now chair of the Recreation, Parks and Recreation.
Fayetteville Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
And that was the board that sent the request to us. And we have Linda Miller, who is also a member of that board. I believe she's vice
Chair now. And
Vice Chair.
part of the executive committee. Yes, ma'am.
And before Skip gives his word, I want all members of Willis Creek Church to raise your hand. Now stand up. You've been sitting a while. I want to hear a word from Skip, and then I'm going to come back and recognize some other members of his family.
I don't know really what I can say. I'm Skip Carr, 560 Fred Hall Road, Stedman, North Carolina, straight up homeboy from from the the Cumberland Fayetteville Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I could stand up in here and sing the accolades of Mr. Pone, J.D. Pone, until the cows come home, but it would not ever give reference to the people who know what J.D. Pone brought to the table and the services that he provided to our communities, with especially our youth. Our youth are starving today, and people like J.D. Pone, he stood up to the plate and batted a home run, and I'm thankful. Very thankful. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. We're also honored tonight to be joined by the Pone family. Would you stand, please? Thank you. Also members of the church. I recognize his children, his wife, his children, grandchildren, son, followed in his footsteps, didn't he? Fire department. and daughter. Okay, thank you. It is fitting that this recreation facility will bear the name of a man who devoted so much time and energy to the Grays Creek community, and thereby also to the entire citizenry of Cumberland County. I am very pleased and honored. I want to make this motion first, and then I'm going to recognize the judge for a minute. I move that the Board of Commissioners approve renaming the Grays Creek Recreation Center as the John Dove J.D. Pone Recreation Center.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. That's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Judge?
On behalf of the family of J.D. Pone, we are grateful to the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners, the Parks and Recreation Board, and the entire Grays Creek community for this honor bestowed upon him. J.D. was a man of many talents who loved his God, his family, his church, his country, and his community. And in all of that, he loved to serve. His service extended from Grays Creek to Vietnam, where when his number came up while he was a student at Fayetteville State, he proudly went to serve because his country called upon him to do so. When he returned, he went back to the community he loved, Grays Creek, because after all, it is God's country. He went back to work at the Willis Creek AME Zion Church, the church where he grew up in, where he went on to serve as preacher, steward, musician. He then joined the volunteer fire department at Station 24, where he eventually became the assistant chief. And among many other things, he served with Parks and Rec, which he loved because he loved children. He realized that they are a message we send into a time that we will never see. So he worked to improve the quality of life, not only for his own children, but for all the children in and around the Grays Creek community and Cumberland County. He put in countless hours for Parks and Rec, and he served as a coach, a mentor to many young people who are now adults and have children of their own. In fact, he recruited me as an assistant coach before my children were old enough to play, because he realized that appropriate parks and recreation provided a quality of life that also invited industry to our community. I heard someone say that while God places his hands on each of us, there are some who hold special gifts. And when God gives those gifts, he not only places his hands on them, but he holds them there. I believe when it came to service, my brother, God put his hands on him and held them there. Again, we thank the Board of Commissioners, Parks and Recreation Board, the Grays Creek community, and it is our prayer as you, the commissioners, continue to do the people's business, God will place his hands on each of you and hold them there. May God bless each of you, the Grays Creek community, the County of Cumberland, the great state of North Carolina, and the United States of America, and our family thanks you.
Mr. Chairman.
We have the family.
Well, if I could, Judge Pone, if you would just kind of, they just called the wife, if you just introduce the names of the family members, I think that's appropriate at such an event as this.
This is Mary Pone, JD's wife. We have his daughter, Daisha Davis, sons Jameson and Josiah. We have JD Pone Jr., we call him JR, his wife Dana, and their daughters Jaden and Hayden. And Jaden, you all probably read about in the paper about softball.
Yeah.
Yes. We have his two brothers are here, including myself, Gerald and James, and his sister Cornelia. Our other two sisters are in Charlotte, but they send their many thanks and love, and the entire family church community is here, and the Grays Creek community.
You better introduce your wife so you don't get in trouble.
my
I don't
wife
want you in trouble
Beverly.
next week. I don't want you in trouble next week.
Thank you, Attorney Allen. Commissioner Allen.
Good save. Good save.
Yes, come on up here. Come on up in the wheel. How you doing here, baby? Hey, look, cover up, man.
That's all right.
Always good to see you. What's up, my good friend?
Come on now, squeeze together. We ain't got no sector.
We got this. We got this.
Come on, Charles. You can't have that face when we take a picture.
I'm gonna take some of this one for Asia. All right, now, ladies.
No wonder phone wins every time. You get that many family members. How many votes is that? How many votes is that already? Phone starts off with 200.
Bye, Karen. Bye, Helen.
Carrie, keep posting the photos.
Thank you.
Ms. Cannon, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, and actually, Mr. Chairman, we're on item 3, which is the consent agenda.
You are exactly right, we're on the consent agenda.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Item number 4, Mr. Chairman, is our public hearings, and we'll begin with 5 uncontested rezoning cases. This evening, we have Ms. Patty Spiker presenting the cases.
Okay. And commissioners, each of you have in front of you your motions, starting down with Mr. Evans, Commissioner Evans. Okay? We're ready.
Okay, item 4A is case P 98
6. It's a revocation of a CU for a manufactured home in a CP planned commercial district on .5 acres at 3176 Whitman Road. It's owned by Lawrence Glindeman. The planning board unanimously recommended approval.
Okay. We're going to open the public hearing. Ask the clerk if there are any speakers.
There are no speakers.
Okay, we will close the public hearing, call for any discussion or questions if we have any. If not, we'll call for a motion.
In case of P98-06, I move to approve the rezoning to revoke the conditional use overlay for a manufactured home at the property owner's request and find the South Central Land Use Plan has been examined and does not address this particular situation, and further find approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because of conditional use overlays were approved prior to 2005 in order to allow land uses that were not permitted in the current zoning district in exceptional situations, later deemed as an improper use of zoning, and that the manufactured home is not currently located on the subject property.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans.
Second.
We have a second? We have a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Can we open a public hearing?
Case P18-21 is a rezoning at R7.5/CZ for nonprofit recreation center and other specific uses, which you have the list in your packet, to RR/CZ for indoor recreation, for-profit, nonprofit, and other uses that are also included in your packet. The property is located at 4221 Blackbridge Road. It's on 10.08 acres. The majority of the site, including the building and the primary parking, is located within the town of Hope Mills. The town recommended, or the town voted to approve their portion on July 23rd. The planning board unanimously recommended approval of both Hope Mills and the county portions.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
We will close the public hearing and call on Commissioner Adams for, or do we have any discussion? No, I suppose.
No.
Do we? Mr. Keefe, you're looking at the screen?
Nope.
Okay.
In case P18-21, I move to approve the rezoning from R7.5 residential conditional zoning for a nonprofit recreation center and other specific allowed uses to RR rural residential conditional zonings for indoor recreation for profit and other specific allowed uses, and find A, the approval is an amendment to the adopted current Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan 2014 map, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to said map for this request. B, the following change in conditions was considered in amending the zoning ordinance, the zoning map, to meet the development needs of the community. The requested district is consistent with the suburban residential designation by the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan, and the nonprofit recreation center was approved in 2011 prior to the adoption of the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan. And C, this rezoning approval is reasonable and in the public interest because the use will provide a valuable alternative source of organized recreation for the citizens in the surrounding community.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams. Do we have any? We have a motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Have a second? All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Case P18-24 is a rezoning request from RR and C1P to C2P. It's located at 7163 Rockfish Road. It's 1.2 acres and owned by Petramart. The planning board unanimously recommended approval of the request for a rezoning.
Okay. We're going to open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers.
We will close the public hearing. Do we have any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, in case P18-24, I move to approve the rezoning from RR Rural Residential and CIP Planned Local Business District to C2P Planned Service and Retail District, and find A, the approval is an amendment to the adopted current Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan of 2013 map, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to said map for this request. Further, B, the following change in condition was considered in amending the zoning ordinance, zoning map, to meet the development needs of the community. The parcel is currently zoned a non-residential district, and approval of the request will limit future heavy commercial along the south side of Rockfish Road toward the existing residential area. And C, this rezoning approval is reasonable and in the public interest because the subject property is located in an area that is in transition from residential to commercial.
Okay, Commissioner Bush, thanks for your motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Case P18-25 is a request for rezoning from RR/CUD for manufactured and stick-built homes and CP CUD for trade contracting with equipment storage, to RR/CZ for the manufactured and stick-built homes to remain just as they currently exist, and CP/CZ for trade contracting with equipment storage and motor vehicle repair with towing service. In other words, the manufactured home, stick-built home, and the trade contracting already exist. He's trying to add the motor vehicle repair with towing service in the existing non-residential building.
Okay.
The property is located at 5449 NC Highway 210 South. It's 1.29 acres, owned by Stephanie and Eddie Naylor, and the planning board unanimously recommended approval.
Okay. Open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers.
We will close the public hearing, and I believe, Mr. Keith, this is yours. On your paper.
I move to approve the rezoning from RR residential conditional use district for stick-built home and manufactured home, and CP plan commercial CUD conditional use district for trade contracting with storage of equipment, to RR rural residential conditional zoning for stick-built home, manufactured home, and CP plan commercial CZ conditional zoning for trade contracting with storage of equipment and motor vehicle repair with towing and fine. The approval is an amendment to the adopted current 2030 growth vision plan, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to said map for the request. The following change in conditions was considered in amending the zoning ordinance zoning map to meet the development needs of the community. Although the districts requested were not entirely consistent with the rural areas designation, the uses requested were compatible with the permitted uses allowed in the surrounding zoning districts, and this rezoning approval is reasonable and in the interest because the district requested it in harmony with similar approvals in the general area and the 2008 approval of the current zoning of the subject property.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
That's unanimous.
Okay, case P18-26 is request for a rezoning from RR to MP/conditional zoning for machine tool manufacturing and welding with the existing manufactured home and accessory structures. Property is located at 5576 Letha Lane. It's 1.89 acres, owned by Eddie Ray II. The Joint Planning Board unanimously recommended approval of this request.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Okay, we will close the public hearing, and I believe, Mr. Fairclough, you better take a deep breath. You've got a long one.
Mr. Chairman, in the case of P18-26, I move to approve the rezoning from RR Rural Residential to MP Plan Industrial/CZ conditional zoning for machine tool manufacturing and welding with existing manufacturing home and accessory structures, and find A, the approval is an amendment to the adopted current Northeast Cumberland Land Use Plan 2010 map, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to said map for this request, because the land uses within any detailed map area are not parcel specific, and in any event, the land use planning process was never intended to shut down an existing business. B, the following change in conditions was considered in amending the zoning ordinance to meet the development needs of the community. At the time, the subject property was rezoned to RR rural residential, urban services, and municipal influence areas did not exist. However, the subject property is included on a list of potential properties for annexation by the town of Godwin. C, and this rezoning approval is reasonable and in the public interest, because although staff acknowledges the existing business has been expanded, the property owner has indicated this business began on the site prior to zoning. Permit records do not go that far back. Regardless, it would be unfathomable to constrain an existing viable business when the owner voluntarily submitted this application once he became aware that the expansions were not accomplished in the proper manner. This rezoning is subject to the ordinance-related conditions.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
I have a question.
Got a question? Okay.
Yeah, it says it's on the list of possible areas that Godwin's looking at annexing. Did we get their input, thought process?
Yes, sir. And the mayor of Godwin is also here tonight in support of this case.
That's what I wanted to hear, one way or the other. Good
Right.
to have you here. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So all those in favor, that was unanimous, I believe?
Unanimous.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item 4F is another public hearing. As you may recall, at the December 18th, 2017 meeting, the Board of Commissioners indicated that they would like to ask the planning staff to review a portion of Cumberland Road from Owen Drive to Hope Mills for zoning consistency. The planning staff did a detailed review. Mr. Trey Smith did a presentation at the policy committee meeting that was then moved forward to the planning board. This evening, Mr. Smith is going to review that plan, and then we'll open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. Planning staff was asked to complete a study for future land use of the area of Cumberland Road from Hope Mills Road to Owen Drive. In order to create a complete assessment of the study area, staff researched and compiled characteristics of the area, including current zoning, current land use, curb cuts, proximity to available utilities. Planning staff also used those items to create 8 recommendations for future land use within the area. This map shows the area. If you notice, I don't have a.
Here you go.
Whatever, but yeah, there you go. Here you go. Hope Mills Road to Owen Drive.
He's a Boy Scout. He comes prepared.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right, just some brief statistics of the area. There was 216 parcels in the study area. 48% were residential. 52% were non-residential. That was the current zoning. I'm sorry. Current zoning of the area was 48 residential, 52% non-residential. The current land uses of the area were 49% residential, 35% non-residential, and 16% of the properties were vacant. This is current zoning of this map shows the current zoning of the area. Approximately, as I mentioned earlier, approximately half zone commercial, with the other half remaining residential. The residential properties are at a density of R10 or greater. I'm just going to keep continuing going on through here. This is existing land use, existing and current land uses. As you notice, there's 49% residential land uses, 35% non-residential, and you'll see the 16% that are in white that are vacant. Two things here at one time. Potential setback conformity.
Question, pardon me.
Yes, sir. I have a quick question. What is that kind of idly boot? What is that? See?
Right here? Oh, that's not working. There?
No. What,
oh,
right there, that one, yeah. What is that?
That is it's a large piece of land that was, it's mostly wet, and we're in a 100-year floodplain. It's kind of split in half, and it's.
Okay, it just looked like the largest parcel out there. So
yeah, it's most of the vast majority of it is undevelopable, I believe, other than the portion close to Cumberland Road.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. What this slide shows is the ones in blue would not meet side yard setback requirements or insufficient lot widths if zoned C2P or CP. And you can barely see there's just a couple of small ones in red that wouldn't meet the side yard setback requirements if it was zoned C1P or O&IP. Those are 15 foot for those side yard setbacks and 30 foot for the other two. But like I said, those in blue show insufficient lot width in respects to C2P or CP. Next slide.
Is that depth or side?
I'm sorry, sir?
Depth, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Depth or the side?
Side yard setbacks, so it's lot width.
Okay, all those blue ones right there, is that a bunch of parcels?
Yes, sir. They're small individual parcels.
And so less than 50 feet
Yes,
across
sir.
or something?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Next slide. This shows the adjacent landowners. This shows the opportunity for property owners that own adjacent lots to recombine into larger lots that would be more suitable for commercial development. There's 33 opportunities here. If you see those shown in blue, that's going to be one of the recommendations going forward, is to recommend and strongly encourage recombination of these lots as they're brought to us going forward for rezoning requests. This slide shows number of curb cuts. Most parcels within the study area have at least one curb cut, and approximately 15% have two or more. You'll see the hashed area there. Those are properties that have some side road access. Just about every lot has at least one curb cut already. So one of the policies you'll see also, one of the recommendations you'll see at the end is to try to reduce the number of curb cuts going forward to help with traffic conditions in the area. Rezoning cases, over the past 10 years, there have been 12 rezoning requests in the area over the last 10 years. 11 of those requests were from residential to commercial. As this slide shows that the overall trend of the area that was studied is, although slowly, from residential to commercial, averaging anywhere between one request a year.
Mr. Chairman, can you tell me on which end of Cumberland Road was that happening?
Well,
the
parcels that you see in the colored parcels are the ones where the requests occurred. And down here it shows you the different case numbers and what they were from, like R6, this one PO 777 from R6A to C1.
The colored ones you say, okay.
Yes, the ones in color, the beige or pinkish looking colors, that's the ones that no rezoning requests have been occurred on. The next slide shows vacant lots in the area. Approximately 16% of the parcels within the area are currently vacant. Those are shown in the red, and then there's a few just that are orange that by tax code purposes they're considered vacant. I guess they may have a building on them, but they're not being occupied or used at the time. But the ones you see in darker red are just vacant without anything on them whatsoever. Next slide is sewer approximations. No, I'm sorry.
You got a question?
Possible. I'm sorry. Question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go back.
The vacant lots, are they vacant and buildable or vacant and not buildable?
They'd go on an individual basis, I would assume. I'm not aware that any of them would be unbuildable. Going with the intent is that they're buildable lots.
You had indicated before on some slides previously that some of them did not make setback requirements or that.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, are we really talking about 16% of them are vacant, or 16? Is that real inventory, or is that?
Well, I don't know that we actually compared whether they were vacant versus whether they're buildable or not. We probably should have combined one slide and had whether they were vacant and or buildable, going back and referring the two. But
it's hard to charge somebody, because what we're really talking about is putting sewer out to this area.
Right.
So if it's not buildable, it's kind of hard to charge a property owner.
Mr. Lord would like to speak real quick.
With respect to setbacks, they would end up being buildable because we encourage them to come in with conditional zoning, which during that process would grant a waiver to the side yard setback.
But isn't the purpose of this to put consistency on this Cumberland Road? So, I mean, if we're going to be looking at conditional zoning throughout, are we really bringing consistency to the area?
When we get to the recommendations, most of the consistency is going to boil down to septic versus sewer, and the steps we're going to take to involve the health department more in the conditional zoning process. We know that the trend is going to continue to go non-residential.
Correct.
So, and I don't want to jump to the conclusions, but we have PwC here that's going to go over what part has the biggest chance, the least costly to extend sewer. We will encourage non-residential there, and then the rest of them, not with respect to setback, but with respect to septic tank, we're going to send down to the health department and work with them on the specific use. That's why we would encourage conditional zoning, so we can get the specific use and work with the health department as to whether it would be adequate or not, whether the lot would be adequate or not.
And I don't want to belabor this, but it seems like we're putting together a plan to have exceptions to the plan. We're not going to, pretty much, we're not going to allow septic tanks on non-residential. It's pretty much been the practice not to allow septic tanks on commercial developments, correct?
Heavier commercial. On light commercial, we have.
Okay.
Especially along Cumberland Road in the past. Most of these rezonings to non-residential have been without public sewer. They've been on septic.
Thank you.
And prior to getting to sewer, this slide shows the Cumberland Road possible study violations. Scott Walters with code enforcement walked up and down and found potential zoning and land use violations. Those green areas are where some of those potential violations exist. There, as you see there, what you see in green. Getting back to sewer, this slide shows it's a sewer approximation map. This slide shows that it would currently be more costly to extend sewer to the eastern half of the study area due to a lack of existing sewer lines and topography in the area, and less costly to extend it to the western half of the study area due to more favorable conditions. Mr. John Allen from PwC was so gracious as to come here tonight and answer any questions y'all may have regarding sewer in the area. Mr. Glass had previously attended the planning board meeting, wasn't able to attend, and he filled in for him tonight. If you have any questions, he would be more than happy to answer for you.
Anybody have a question? Well, let's ask him something because he's been
I'll
here
be
a long
happy
time. Yes. How about taking the floor there, my friend? Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Keith.
Thank you, and thanks for coming. I hope there's an opportunity for some partnerships in here. Is there an option for the? I'm going to assume that the eastern part is this part, right?
The eastern part should be back towards Owen Drive, I believe.
Okay, well, he was saying the western part is not. So,
the area in blue does not have current sewer and would need to be, that would be the most cost to provide sewer to that area shown in blue. The area in red is the cheaper areas to serve, if I read that map correctly.
Should we realistic, is there a gravity problem or is it just an installation and operation problem?
It's a gravity and availability problem.
Both.
Yeah, I think, right.
And a financial.
And cost. Right, yes, right. Correct. I think there's a gravity outfall that runs from the Hope Mills part to where the blue starts kind of in the middle right there at Zariba Drive. There's a gravity outfall that we could run up for those 5 blue lines running straight up. But after that, it doesn't exist, so you'd have to run a major outfall on a backbone just to get gravity available to run up to the streets.
There's been a lot of planning on there. The idea is it realistic to even consider that sewer will be coming to this place financially in the next 10 or 15 years? As it sits right now, without an additional influx of
At this point, PwC does not have any plans in our capital budget to extend sewer to this area.
And where does the sewer stop right now?
I believe it stops kind of right there at Zariba Drive, right in that general vicinity, and goes back down towards Hope Mills. This area is kind of a no man's land for sewer in terms of what PWC has. So pretty much from Zariba Drive back towards Hope Mills, there's some existing infrastructure. From Zariba Drive back towards Owen Drive, there's very minimal infrastructure.
And I assume that all these are homes, residential?
I believe that's correct.
And they're all on septic?
Ireland Drive. Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing on, we came up with 8 recommendations for the planning department staff to use going forward. Number 1, strongly encourage redevelopment with the use of conditional rezonings. 2, prohibit applicants from rezoning properties from heavy commercial where sewer is unavailable. 3, work with environmental health in determining septic and land use compatibility through conditional rezonings. 4, require mandatory sewer connection for rezoning requests located from Hope Mills Road east to Zariba Drive and from the railroad east to Owen Drive per section 2306A of the Cumberland County subdivision ordinance. 5, encourage recombination of adjoining parcels under same ownership as condition of rezoning request approval. 6, work with North Carolina Department of Transportation to limit curb cuts, recommend joint drives and use of lateral access. 7, continue to not process requests where active land use violations exist as per planning board policy. 8, target area for minimum housing and zoning violations. Those are the 8 recommendations of this plan. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them. And that's all I've got for you.
Any additional questions? This time we will open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
And there are no speakers.
Okay, we will close the public hearing at this time.
I have a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve.
Can and just on number 8, instead of targeted area, can we just say that we will review for minimum housing and zoning violations? I don't want to go out and say we targeting certain parts of this community. I just, if we can just change that to, you know, whatever our policy is the review for minimum housing and zoning violations, and take out the target area.
Absolutely. It's still going to mean the same thing.
With the correction of the word, substitution of word target.
Yes.
To
review the area.
Review the area for housing and zoning
review
violations.
area for minimum housing and zoning violations. That work? All right, thank you. I move to approve the Cumberland Road Business Street Plan as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
It's unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
Mr. Chairman, our final public hearing is item 4G. It's a public hearing for the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant, and I would ask Ms. Lisa Blauser from our Sheriff's Office to come forward and present this item, please.
Good evening, Lisa. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. On behalf of Sheriff Ennis Wright, I'm Lisa Blauser, the Sheriff's Office Business Manager, here to speak to you to let you know that the Sheriff's Office is eligible to apply for an Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. This is a grant provided through the U.S. Department of Justice and Bureau of Justice Assistance and is a joint grant through the Sheriff's Office and the City of Fayetteville. The intention of the award is to provide local law enforcement agencies to support local crime reduction efforts and to improve public safety. For the fiscal year 18 grant, the Sheriff's Office amount as determined by the U.S. Department of Justice is $29,587, and the Fayetteville Police Department portion is $117,032 for a total grant of $146,619. These allegations are based on population and violent crime statistics for the population served. One of the requirements of the grant is that a public hearing be held on the use of the funds. The Sheriff's Office intends to utilize the funds to allow for wireless mobile connectivity to SBI and FBI databases, and to allow the deputies to retrieve their information from within their deputy cars within the field. The city intends to utilize their funds for equipment such as a community empowerment team creating opportunity for a community policing vehicle that will allow them to interact more within the community, and for a communications mobile command center that will allow them to deploy and enhance and reestablish communication and coordination during emergency incidents. A memorandum of understanding has been developed and signed between the Sheriff's Office and the Fayetteville Police Department, has been approved by the city at this point.
We will open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Okay, we will close the public hearing at this time. I have a motion available. I move to approve the memorandum of understanding, complete the certification and assurances by the chief executive of the applicant government form, and authorize the county manager to sign the application submittal.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
That's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, we'll move to item 6 because item 5 is normally our items of business. We have no items of business for this meeting. Item number 6 is nominations.
All right, Commissioner Council.
I have appointments. Oh,
Nomination.
nominations. Find it for me.
Mr. Chairman, I can do the nominations.
Okay.
Yes, she does the appointments. The Nursing Home Advisory Board has following 9 vacancies, and I would ask Laura Hardy, she's eligible for reappointment. Nakia Cunningham is eligible for reappointment. Brenda MacArthur Strong, Diane Wheatley, Benika Elliott, Catherine Marble, Ronish Rivers, and Dorothy McNeil, and Angela Tate Stewart as the last.
Okay.
Those would be the nominations.
All right. B is the Adult Home Community Advisory Committee. 9 vacancies.
All right. I nominate Ms. Carla Fagan, Nokia Cunningham. I've done something to my screen. Can't pull it up.
Dorothy McNeil, Dr. Dennis Corbin, William Duke, Wilbert Stokes, Deborah Stuckey, Felicia Vaughn, and Joseph Dykes, D-Y-K-E-S.
Okay. We're on item C, Transportation Advisory Board, 1 vacancy, and Commissioner Adams, you're on a roll.
Kenneth Dye, he said he's willing to serve another term.
Okay. Item number 7, appointments. You may as well keep rolling.
Okay.
That's for the vice chair right there. But I think she got that.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I move that we, for the Board of Adjustment, which has 3 vacancies, that we reappoint Alfonso Ferguson, reappoint George Turner, and appoint Gregory Parks to the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay.
Item B.
Mr. Chairman, if on item B, that's the Fayetteville Tech Community College.
Yes.
I nominated Ernest Goodson. I would like to pull that nomination at this time.
So.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Then I move that we.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Item B, Fayetteville Technical Community College,
No, go
Board
ahead.
of Trustees, 1 vacancy.
There you go.
Okay.
I didn't know about that. Go ahead.
Okay.
I move that we appoint David Williford to the FTCC Board of Trustees.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I was on the roll, you told me. Let me have my roll.
Okay. We are adjourned.
I can roll.